travel to be uncomfortable, as do potholes in the roads. So this partnership that we include between the roads and aviation is Michigan Central in Detroit, highlighting advanced air mobility and unmanned aerial system startups, and the work done with connected and automated vehicles throughout the state. So there's a lot of research that's going to be done both for ground transportation and air transportation in the near future. There is research funding provided by FHWA to MDOT, which is used in partnership with Aero funds to promote projects such as UAS BVLOS corridor. Now that's a corridor that the governor set up some time ago that studies the multimodal airport electric charging station project. So if we're going to have electric vehicles and electric airplanes, there has to be an infrastructure for charging these vehicles as they traverse the state. So this partnership has been sustained for many years and will continue to provide important guidance and oversight on the governance of transportation in Michigan. And we hope we can be a leader or an example to the rest of the nation how this partnership can work and bring about innovation in the future. So I will ask members of the Michigan Aeronautics Commission to introduce themselves, and noting that we do have one, Benjamin Carter, who may be on the phone, and Kelly Burris, who are not present. So we'll start with the Michigan Aeronautics Commission, then we'll go to the State Transportation Commission.
Rick Fiddler.
Good morning, Mike Trout.
Good morning, Bryan Teff.
Good morning, Kevin Jacobs.
Good morning, Laura Mester.
And I'll now turn the mic over to Chairman Smith of the State Transportation Commission.
Chairman Hayes.
Michael Hayes, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Chairman Hayes.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Chairman Smith. Appreciate that. I'll start out with introductions. So if the commissioners could introduce themselves, or the seated at the State Transportation Commission table is.
Good morning, I'm Rhonda Welburn.
Good morning, I'm Suzanne Schultz.
And again, I'm Mike Hayes, I'm chair. We do have one member absent. Rita Brown is not able to join us today, and Heath Salisbury is on by Microsoft Teams. So we do have a quorum. I appreciated your introductory comments, Chairman Smith, and I think it's good perspective on how the inner workings between aeronautics and highways. It's obvious a web or a network that is critical to the proper functioning of commerce, industry, agriculture, tourism, you name it. In Michigan, we need to be very much coordinated together and cooperating, and I think we do very much so. So it's a great partnership, if you will, and I think it at the MDOT level and aviation level, staff level, I think there's tremendous cooperation. I think that we have some similar concerns both on aviation and transportation, and that is funding, as always, is a critical concern, and then probably almost as important is materials and cost of construction and personnel, and be able to attract talent and have all the right people to do all the right jobs that we need done. So our needs and our concerns very much are intertwined, and all with the idea that our number one concern of both the general transportation and aviation is safety. The people of Michigan, the people who visit Michigan, expect us to provide them with as safe and efficient environment as we possibly can, and I think we're all highly committed to that. Just as an aside, having said all that, the one thing that we're going to have as a priority as the State Transportation Commission this year, we're going to take a comprehensive review of the State Transportation Commission policies. We are a policy-making body as a State Transportation Commission, and we have over 80 policies in place that some have been in place since way back in the 60s. Hard for me to think it's way back in the 60s. I was just in college then. But we're convinced that some of those policies dating back to then, they've got to be either out of date or irrelevant or very much in need of a very critical look. And so that's going to be our priority for 2024 and probably into 2025, is a look at those policies and how they can serve the people of Michigan better and make sure that our transportation system is as safe and efficient as possible.
Thank you, Chairman Hayes. I'd like to bring to the podium Brigadier General Bryan Teff, who will make a presentation.
A quick highlight of the MAC meeting for those that missed it, in case you want to see those slides, and there we go.
Hey, thanks. I appreciate the introduction, and thank you for the time today to be able to just present a little bit on this Alpena Regional County Airport. If you listen to Chairman Smith and Chairman Hayes, their comments related to safety, partnerships, and funding, I'm going to cover all three of those in these few charts today of what we did, just to set a little bit of the context. So I'm Bryan Teff. I'm one of the assistant adjutant generals here in Michigan. I work for Major General Paul Rogers, who's the adjutant general here in Michigan. I'm also commissioner on the Aeronautics Commission. But today I want to talk about the Alpena Regional County Airport. And just for context there, we're looking at runway 1 and 19 is the primary focus of the comments. That's their long major runway in Alpena. It's about 9,000 feet long. It's a joint use field. So it's a shared airport with the Air Force and the military and the civilian populace. To include Delta Airlines does have at least one flight a day to and from Detroit. Sometimes that ramps up a little bit. If you look at the chart there, that chart north is to your right. So the big thing with this project, what was really interesting, it was in June of 2022. So that wasn't even 2 years ago, only 18 months ago. There was actually a unit, an F-16 unit, so that's a fighter jet, single engine airplane. The engine's really low to the ground. It's like a vacuum cleaner, tends to suck up debris if there's debris on a runway, right? They were deployed from Oklahoma to Michigan, up in Alpena, and this was in June of 2022. We found out that there was significant foreign object damage on the runway during that time, and the unit had to stop flying, basically. So they couldn't continue to fly. So we found, and then as we dug a little deeper and started really looking at the condition of the runway overall, we really found out that the runway needed significant repair. The whole thing, the main runway, all 9,000 feet, more in certain areas. So we got after this project, and again, the key partnership, you look at the bottom down there, there's 3 projects, 5 contracts that we executed, $60 million inside of 18 months. Unbelievable partnership between Washington, D.C., not only the FAA, but the military, and that's the National Guard plus the Air Force, and the state of Michigan, and our local airport manager. A lot of you know Steve Smigelski, who happens to run he's the airport manager at the Alpena Regional County Airport. Unbelievable partnership. Director Trout and his team to execute the funds. We're able to get all this designed and executed, again, in 18 months. We have, and I'll talk about it here in a second, we have one little portion of the project remaining, but 2 of the 3 of these phases are already complete, totally complete. The runway is amazing. I've landed on it a couple times now. Unbelievable, brand new surface, amazing work. So that's what I'm going to talk about here in just the next few minutes. If we can, I'll go to the next slide, and I'll show you some of the pictures of why, and you can read why. You can see that the concrete was failing, non-compliant gains in elevation, non-conforming outdated airfield lighting, and if you look at the pictures at the bottom, that's what generated the requirement to have to fix the runway. Here's the overview. So we started with obviously phase 0, which was the middle portion of the runway, which was really funded by the FAA to the max extent. That was done very quickly. Amazing contract work. We had all that complete last summer by August. So from knowing the problem in June of 22, by August of 23, the middle section of the runway was completely resurfaced. So that's amazing work. So they took that whole top layer off and then relayered the whole middle part of the runway, which was over 7,000 feet. And then we started working immediately on phase 1, which is the north end of the runway. Now, I didn't talk about this previously, but the north and the south end of the runway, we had to get that to military specifications. So that was a complete full depth removal of all the concrete all the way down. So that's significant. And then to rebuild that all the way up from ground up. So that's intended to be able to take your big, 800,000 pound aircraft that come in like a C-5, these C-17s, all that kind of stuff. So we got the first 1,500 feet of each side of the runway has to go full depth. We completed the north end already in the fall, so that's complete. And all we have left is the south end that we're going to be doing here in the spring. Here's some of the highlights of the project execution. So the first bullet I highlighted because that was the key point. Unbelievable partnerships. Less than 2 years, we were able to execute $60 million, and Alpena Regional County Airport has a completely new runway. The bottom bullet there that talks about generational repair, that's absolutely true. So now we've got a runway in place up there for the next 30 to 40 years. Amazing stuff. And again, I wanted to, actually my slide went blank here. I don't know why. There's one more slide. Some of the lessons learned that I wanted to talk about. I don't know what happened.
Did I lose that last slide?
Yeah, I lost the last. That's okay.
You can keep talking.
The big part of the lessons learned for us was build the relationships early with all the right partners, which fortunately we have the right partnerships, and we were able to get that done as soon as possible. Understand all the specifications for both military and civilian requirements, which we had, and we knew that, and we understood that, and that allowed us to execute faster. And then the other piece was a relationship with that local airport. That was very, very helpful. I mean, it just so happens that Mr. Smigelski, he retired from the military and he transferred to be the airport manager in Alpena. So we had this natural relationship, but even if you don't have that, you would want to build that as early as possible. So with that, I'll close for any comments or questions. If you do have specific technical questions, I brought my colleague with me, Colonel Ryan Christoph, expert engineer in the back row, and he can answer any technical engineering type of questions. Awesome. Yes, sir.
When I first started flying into Alpena in the early 90s, they had an above-surface arresting cable, which always grabbed your attention as a pilot landing small aircraft. And then ultimately they went subsurface. And I noticed in your presentation that was included. Did they update the arresting system? And maybe just an example of when that would be used.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. That was part of this project, although we haven't finished that portion yet because we're waiting for the spring and the weather to improve. And those arresting systems for certain types of military aircraft, mainly the fighter type of aircraft, the fast landing airplanes, that in case there's an emergency, they need to be able to use this arresting system to stop before they run off the end of the runway. So that's very, very important. Not really as much for, not used for the civilian world, but on the military side, it's a requirement, so we have to have that. You knew that was a rhetorical question, but you can answer.
It's very interesting. I like to hear from you.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Anything else? Any comments or questions? Appreciate everybody's time. Thank you. Go ahead, sir.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
So with the improvements that were somewhat driven by or demanded by and funded well by the feds, what happens now to the military aircraft coming in and out of there? Will it go back to some of the F-16s going in and out of there, or what will happen to the air traffic, the military air traffic?
Great question. So we do believe that all the fighter aircraft starting this year, we have a plan during our big exercise that we do in the summertime. We should have a normal flow of our F-16s and other advanced generation fighters back into Alpena, which is a good thing.
Well, it is. And very selfishly, we have a place on Lake Huron just south of Oscoda, and it's great fun to watch the military aircraft going back and forth in front of ours. So we miss the F-16s.
Appreciate the marketing. Right?
One snuck up on me a couple of years ago when I was walking the beach, and I was walking south or north to south. That aircraft snuck up on me and scared me pretty good. They come up pretty stealthily, and then boom, you hear them.
Awesome. Thanks.
Look forward to that.
Perfect. It'll be back this summer.
Chairman Hayes, you should ride in one. Ask him.
I'm waiting the invitation.
Thank
All
you.
right. Thank you, General Teff. Now we have joyous part of the morning, service award that Director Trout is going to present.
Well, good morning, Commissioners, and as you know, or you may not know, the military assets in this state are really second to none. These joint facilities and the standalone facilities that we have in Grayling and Alpena and Mount Clemens, and the leadership of folks like Major General Teff are significant to the vitality of those areas as well. And it's not just cool, but it really means something too. But it's my pleasure this morning to recognize a former director of the Michigan Aeronautics Commission, Rob Abent, and I'd take this moment to invite his wife, Susan Abent, up here if she'd like to come. I know she's a little nervous about it, but if you want to just come up here, you can hide behind Dr. Smith here. But I wanted to just talk a little bit about Rob. When I met Rob in 2002, I think, he had just been appointed to this job and, as the Bureau Director. Rob worked in with the DNR in a prior life, and he had just been appointed. And at that time, I was working at Bishop Airport, and I was also the president of the Michigan Association of Airport Executives, and he came over and we met, and we frankly didn't hit it off real good. We're like, because at that time it was the Bureau of Aeronautics and Freight Services, which meant rail. And we're like, what are they appointing this guy from the DNR to run aeronautics and freight services? But over the years, we forged a very close friendship and alliance. And when it came time for him to retire in late 2010, I was actually out of the airport business at that time doing something completely different, and I missed it. And I reached out to him, and he was generous enough to have lunch with me and talked about some of the nuances of the commission and some of the commissioners at that time, and prepared me in a way for pending what happened to be an interview and subsequent hiring into the position I have today. And of course, his assistant, Lorraine White, which some of you probably remember in this room, really guided me in those first few days. And for several years, we've tried to keep in touch and have lunch. And he was always interested in the people. What's happened to this person? What's happened to that person? That's how Rob was. Besides his extremely, I don't even know how to explain his sense of humor, but it was phenomenal, and I can still hear his laugh in the back of my mind. So it's an honor for me to have Sue here, his sister Lisa Ham, who's out there as well, and to present a small token of our appreciation. I know the department did do a recognition for him, but I thought it was very important for us to recognize him publicly as well, and this was a perfect setting and forum for that. And of course, what we're presenting to you this morning, Sue, is a wind chime, and I won't take it out because when I did in my office, it would run those folks online off of there. So, but this is on behalf of the Department of Aeronautics and the staff here that remember and loved Rob, and we certainly appreciate you taking the time today to come and accept this for him. Dr. Smith, did you have anything you wanted to say? Or?
No, because I'm too young to remember. But here's this, and I know you wanted to be here, and it meant a lot to me that you would take the time. So thank you, and please extend to the rest of your family our appreciation for Rob's service. So
Thank you.
now we'd like to open up the floor for commissioner comments on either STC or MAC.
I think one thing, nope. One thing that we have in common, I think one of the interesting things is that in transportation, technology and policies, everything is so dynamic right now. And technology in particular related to drone deliveries and air taxis and all of that. And so I don't know, my understanding is that there is a task force addressing that, but I don't know how that relates to the Aeronautics Commission.
I'd be happy to answer yes. The governor has a 27-member UAS.
You're on.
Yeah. The governor has a 27-member UAS task force, which the Director Weefrick is the designee for, and he has asked me to act in the capacity of chair of that commission, that body, as a task force a couple of years ago, we came out with some recommendations, most of which were adopted by the legislature, but that group doesn't meet as regularly as it probably should. It's required to meet every 18 months. We've been trying to accelerate that meeting schedule, and just as you pointed out, there are now new technologies in the realm of advanced aerial mobility and other types of things, basically air taxis, moving people and goods with these new types of aircraft. And I appreciate the question, because it does highlight the importance of these groups that are, you know, being represented on these task force and others. And the input that we're getting from the industry and others is very important to the process. So as we do and these bodies begin to look at policies, I believe it's very important to get input from these groups, and I appreciate that very much.
I'd like to add to that, the Aeronautics Commission has a committee to deal with the shortage of UAS pilots and airline pilots also. So we're looking at the talent pool, yet undiscovered, you know, in young people that need to be brought into, you know, this mindset of the future. So I don't know if the STC has such a committee or needs one.
The STC, I don't believe does. MDOT does.
Oh, right. Yeah, I didn't want to answer for the STC on that, but the department has many workforce programs that we're looking at as trying to get the interest at kind of a younger level to come into our industry. We have seen that the skill sets needed in transportation in general are changing, including UAS operation. So, yeah, we do have quite a few programs that help produce the pipeline of talent, and maybe there'd be an opportunity for your work group to kind of talk to some of the folks that are doing this in the department as well, and see if there's opportunities for how we can sync up.
Sounds good. Any other commissioner comments? Then we'd like to go to you, the public, either in the room or online, to make public comment. You don't have to give your name, but you're welcome to. Yes, we have one.
I would like to make, I have a 3-minute comment to, my name's Jack Hoffman. Should I go to the mic, please?
Oh, yeah, that one.
I had a little visual handout for did the state transportation commissioners get that? Yeah, that's exactly right. I think you can understand it with that. It's only 3 minutes, so. And then, as the Commissioner Smith, Chairman Smith mentioned, there's the intermodal issue, and you also mentioned the potholes, and so this addresses those issues from both sides. Good morning, my name is Jack Hoffman. I reside in Grand Rapids, and I'm a board member for Grand Rapids of the Interurban Transit Partnership. I'm an attorney. My purpose today is to address the relation between damage caused to the pavement system and tax revenue raised. One 80,000-pound truck causes road damage equal to 9,600 cars. This is from the Michigan Department of Transportation Design Manual, Road Design, Chapter 6, 2023. Pavement damage is proportional to axle weight to the power of 4 on a per-mile basis. The 40-ton commercial truck-trailer combination with 5 axles causes $2 of pavement damage per mile. The personal vehicle with 2 one-ton axles causes damage of 1/200th of a cent per mile. On an annual vehicle miles traveled basis, commercial trucks on Michigan roads cause $10 billion in pavement damage per year. Personal vehicles cause $20 million. Let's look at the revenue side. Commercial vehicles pay 12 cents per mile in Michigan fuel and registration taxes. Personal vehicles pay 2.3 cents per mile. On an annual vehicle miles traveled basis, trucks cause 10 billion in damage and pay 600 million in fuel and registration taxes. Contrary-wise, personal vehicles cause 20 million in pavement damage and pay 2.3 billion. The gap can be filled by mileage and weight-based user fees, beginning with commercial trucks logged through the federal logging system and paid through the International Registration Plan. Page 2 of the handout is a printout of the Illinois Secretary of State website showing the mileage and weight-based user fees on commercial trucks using Illinois highways. The rate being collected on a 5-axle, 80,000-pound truck-trailer combination is 27.5 cents per mile. Page 3 shows the constitutional and statutory basis of the duty and power of the Transportation Commission to establish and the director to execute user fee policy for the use of state highway facilities and programs. The Transportation Commission should ask the director for a report and recommendation on whether the commission should adopt a user fee policy beginning with commercial trucks based on the Illinois plan. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any other questions from the public, either in the audience or online? So hearing none, we'll get to the closing. I am glad to be a resident of the state of Michigan. It is a great state to live in, and we are looking forward to the next meeting that we have joint together. Sorry it has to be 2 years from now, 2025, but hopefully we can begin to work more closely together, especially with our young talent pool. So our next meeting is, joint meeting is January 2026. Thank you for your participation today. We'll say the meeting is adjourned.
I'd like to call the January 25th meeting of the State Transportation Commission to order. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the commission members and MDOT staff. I just take a personal privilege here, and you know, this last year, those of you that have been regular attendees know I've been the acting chair, and I just want to thank Governor Whitmer for a vote of confidence in naming me as chairman. So I will serve as chairman at the governor's pleasure, and I look forward to doing so. I've been on the commission for quite a few years, and I've enjoyed it immensely, and it gives me great pleasure to have a period of time here to serve as chair. So look forward to that and all your smiling faces out there every quarter. Let's start out the meeting with some comments by Director Weifrick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and congratulations on your appointment. I will also take a little personal privilege. You know, it was almost exactly a year ago that I was sitting in this seat as a acting director. And it's been a full year now, appointed permanently in May of last year, and also agree and appreciate the governor's confidence in me and the Michigan Department of Transportation. I don't have a formal director's presentation today, but did want to kind of mention a couple of things. As we start a new year, and you know, now that I'm in my first full year in this position, a bit of a New Year's resolution with respect to coordination with the State Transportation Commission. I want to take it upon myself in working with staff to make sure that we are having full communication and open communication with the chair and with the commissioners. I tell folks a lot that when people find out that I work for the Michigan Department of Transportation, one, they think we all know each other, and two, I know about every project that's going on in the state. I know a lot about what's going on, obviously, in the department, but I can't know everything, and I always appreciate it when my staff give me a heads up on things that may be contentious or may be of importance in the media or otherwise. And I know when folks find out that you're a chair or a member of the commission, it's probably pretty much the same. So you have my commitment that we will work together to make sure that there are no surprises. Second thing I wanted to mention real quick, I had the privilege of being in the audience for the governor's State of the State last night. She gave the Michigan Department of Transportation a very direct guidance to continue and to be able to issue the remaining $700 million of bonds for the Rebuilding Michigan program. And absolutely, we will oblige. We will continue to work internally and with the Department of Treasury on the timing of those bonds, but we are very committed to fulfilling the Rebuilding Michigan program, which has brought some amazing work to our state, taking care of a lot of our highest value from a travel perspective and an economic perspective, taking care of condition issues, safety issues, operational issues. So we look forward to continuing and putting out that last $700 million worth of bonds. And we look forward, because I know we have a governor that's committed to fixing the dam roads and transportation and infrastructure funding, working with our industry and working with our legislative partners to come up with a solution that provide us the long-term sustainable funding that we know we need. The last thing that I wanted to mention is there's a rising concern across the nation right now about homeless encampments and trespassing on the right-of-way. This is a pretty sensitive issue for us. It does create some operational issues, especially during construction, but also potential safety issues. We also understand that there are people issues associated with that. So we're working with our peers and kind of putting together some general guidance for our folks on how to handle that. And at this time, I'd like to have our Chief Operations Officer, Greg Brunner, come up and just kind of have a conversation about where the department is with this issue.
Thank you, Director. Just while Greg's walking up there, I just want to point out that Commissioner Salisbury is on Microsoft Teams virtually. The provisions of the law don't allow him to vote, but he can participate that way.
Thank you, Director, and good morning, Commissioners. As the Director had mentioned, one of the things that has kind of been rising up nationally as a concern is just how we deal with when we encounter people living in our right-of-way, whether it's limited access right-of-way along the freeways or rest areas or our roadside parks. And as he had mentioned, it's kind of a sensitive issue. It's actually been around for quite a while, but just recently, kind of more probably following the pandemic, it's continued to rise and it's gaining a little bit of media attention. So we just wanted to kind of give you an update on where we're at and how we're handling it going forward. As the Director had mentioned, this is not just a Michigan-specific issue or Metro Detroit issue or urban area issue. It's kind of across the state and across the nation in terms of how it's going and how it's handled. So we are involved nationally through AASHTO, which is the American Association of State Highway Transportation Officials, which more or less is the group of all state DOTs where we come together and have these types of discussions on how we're handling these. And right now where we're at is we have kind of draft procedures in terms of how we handle that when we encounter folks living in our right-of-way, as I mentioned. Each one of those, though, has to be dealt with on a case-by-case basis, depending on the circumstances involved. But at the bottom line, though, is as Chair Hayes had mentioned previously in the joint meeting, is it all revolves around safety. Safety of those individuals, safety of the motoring public, and safety of the infrastructure is how we've kind of approached it. So again, you know, when they are living in our freeway right-of-way, we don't design freeway right-of-way for access, for ingress and egress, and a lot of times it results in folks running across the freeway or other safety-type concerns that, again, we want to try to avoid to keep everybody safe out there. So what we've done is develop some draft procedures that we've been following and working to implement and engage our staff as we encounter these types of events. And kind of the first part comes with just the initial notification on how we encounter people that are living there. A lot of that happens, our folks may find them when they're out doing a bridge inspection. There might be somebody living under a bridge, or you know, we're doing other maintenance activities in the right-of-way or at rest areas or whatever. We get calls from law enforcement, we get calls from some of our maintaining agencies, or even from residents that have the right-of-way fence behind their house that can see activities going on, you know, in the right-of-way. So it's a very sensitive subject, as we had mentioned. So how we have approached it, or our plan to approach it, is we go out and engage those folks directly, just to let them know that they can't be here and that we expect them to leave. We give them a number of days to leave. Typically it's around 2 weeks. That's not a firm date though, because again, it all depends on the safety aspects and other things that are involved there. And after those 2 weeks, we kind of go back and do another check. And if they are still there and haven't moved on, that's when we engage law enforcement, just to let them know what's going on and discuss the Trespass Act that we want to enforce. And another key component to that, though, is more on the human side of things. We also, for larger groups that are out there, we engage local homeless shelters or advocacy groups that can also aid in kind of helping them to relocate somewhere that's safe for everybody. So following that, law enforcement typically goes out, or the advocacy groups go out to typically engage these folks to get them to move on, and kind of gives them a hard date. All these dates are typically recorded. And then kind of following that last date, MDOT and law enforcement or Michigan State Police will go out there with them. By then, they've typically moved on, but if they haven't, we let law enforcement do whatever they decide to do and go from there. But the one issue that typically remains is when they do move on, there's lots of their personal belongings may be left behind. So what we do as a department is we box those up and actually post a sign out there saying that we'll give you X number of weeks to come to our local garage or our local transportation service center or whatever to pick up those belongings. Because we know, just like anyone's belongings, they have a right to be able to get to them. So, but we can't hold them forever also. So this approach has been very successful so far in how we deal with these types of things. But again, it's something we're continuing to learn on and work with individuals that are more experts in this type of area. That's why we're engaging with these advocacy groups and others when we can to help make this as smooth a transition as possible, because, you know, at the end of the day, we don't want anyone to be hit by a car or cause a crash, or if a fire started under our bridge, that's led to catastrophic events around the nation. So again, those are the types of things we're trying to avoid, but as well as we can in working with these different individuals that we encounter out there. But at a high level, that's kind of the draft process that we're working through right now. And again, we don't have a lot of hard and fast dates and times for those types of things, because every case is a little bit different in terms of the safety concerns or other types of things that are involved with it. So again, I just wanted to kind of give you a brief discussion on where we're at. It is in the news once in a while now, so I just wanted to know it's something we're working on. And again, if you have any questions or on how we're moving forward with that, I can take those at this time.
Any of the commissioners have questions for Greg? Microphone.
I just have a question. I see in our draft here that we look at it, our goal is not to get anybody arrested or anything. So I mean, we're soft walking this, but we have to have compliance in the end. And, you know, we've got a lot of leeway to do that. So, you know, we pass that on as our policy to law enforcement. I'm sure that they understand it as well.
Yep, that's why we have those discussions with law enforcement and give them the amount of time. It's not an immediate thing where you walk in and say you have to be out of here now, or police are coming in, whatever. But that's why we give them time to move their valuables, find a new spot to get out of there. You know, so again, we're trying to be as compassionate as we can for the folks that are in these circumstances.
Okay. Well, thank you, Greg. Thanks for the update on that. It's a tough subject. If any of you travel around and go to any large cities and such, it's prevalent throughout the country. You'd think that with our snow and such that maybe we wouldn't have quite the issue here because of the climate, and maybe in the warmer states it's more of an issue. But it doesn't seem to, in fact, maybe some of our overpasses and such provide some shelter that maybe other parts of our state don't, and so you can understand why people gravitate towards them. But I think the department's trying to do a good job of understanding and reacting and acting in a humane and responsible way. So thank you, Greg.
All right, thank you.
We can move into the business part of our meeting. The first item is, now that I'm the chair, we need a vice chair, and I think Commissioner Turner wanted to place a name in nomination.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to put into nomination the name of Heath Salisbury as vice chair.
Thank you. Could I have support?
Support.
And support from Commissioner Schultz. Is there any discussion? And Commissioner Salisbury, even though you're online, you can't object. I very much support having Heath named vice chair. He's good commissioner, and he's interested, and I think he'll serve us well. So if I could call, do we need a roll call on that? If I could have a roll call vote, Commissioner Turner?
Yes.
Commissioner Welborn?
Yes.
Commissioner Schultz?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well, so it's unanimous. Thank you. The minutes from the November 9th meeting were sent out to the commission ahead of time. Is there?
Chairman, I'd offer a motion to accept the minutes as presented.
Thank you, Commissioner Turner.
Support.
Commissioner Welborn supports. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Okay, those pass. We do have a appointment to consider. To So our friends of the Transport Asset Management Council, there is a need for a reappointment of Bill McEntee from the Road Commission, Oakland County. That's supported by the County Road Association, and you do have background material in your packet. That the background material would enter into the minutes.
Yes.
Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to appoint Bill McEntee back to the TAMC.
Thank you, Commissioner Schultz. Support? Support. Any, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous.
And I'd like to thank staff for providing the background on the nominee as well. Thank you.
Okay, now back to the agenda. So, kind of my prerogative as chair, if I could, just to talk about a couple of things. One is, and I've talked with all the commissioners individually by telephone about this concept. When I looked at taking over as chair, I look at the responsibilities of the State Transportation Commission, which are limited but important. The lead one is policy, overall policy for the department. State Transportation Commission adopted policies. And by record of what we could find, there are about 82 policies. And those policies, some date back to the early 60s. That's a long time ago. And what I would like to do and propose, and I think I have support of the commissioners, but I'll open it up when I finish, is that we take it upon ourselves in the next year or two, because it'll take a while, to look at those policies and to work with the Office of Commission Audit and with the MDOT leadership to do a hard look at those policies as to their timeliness, their effectiveness, their usefulness or lack thereof, and to determine at the end of a project like that just what we should recommend. I don't have an idea of a scope of work other than what I just said. I don't know if we'll come back periodically with, say, here's 10 policies, we recommend this or whatever, or if we'll wait till the end and say, here's comprehensive. We'll have to work that out. But I would really like to do that, probably be a sub-team of the commission and working with Jack's office and with Brad and his leadership team. So that, if I kind of look at what I'd like to do as chair going forward, that's kind of my pet project. Any comments from the commissioners about that?
Mr. Chairman, I think it's a great undertaking. As a road commissioner for 20 years, we were a policy-setting group too, but I think being myself, being on here for a few years, have not really know all the policies or most of the policies, simply because if it doesn't come up that it affects a policy, we don't really deal with it. So I think it's a good thing and a good training session for all of us to take a good hard look at for the people in the future, to make sure that we go back after 50 years and look at some of these policies and see what the really relevance is of that policy at this time. So I think it's a great undertaking that you're taking.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Schultz.
I definitely concur. I think doing house cleaning every now and then on policy matters is always a good exercise, and given how much things have changed, especially since the 60s around transportation, I think it's very timely.
Okay, well, we don't, there's really no action required, but I'm sensing support in my conversations with commissioners who are not present here today, and everybody seems to be supportive, so we'll proceed with that, and I'll work with Brad and Jack on kind of how we get that, and Troy, on how we get that going. I'd also like to indicate that there seemed to be a desire, as I talked with the individual commissioners, that it wouldn't hurt to have a kind of a workshop, a background workshop regarding MDOT and its inner workings and complexities and that kind of thing as an educational opportunity for for all the commissioners individually and then as a group. So we're going to work towards setting that up at our April meeting. After the meeting, it could take the form, if we leave the meeting date where it is, it could take the form of we meet, conduct our business, and then the commission goes off. We have lunch and maybe a couple hours work session as just the commission with the appropriate MDOT staff. And there seemed to be really good interest and support in that. So I look forward to doing that, hopefully in April. Okay, so those are kind of the things I felt as chair starting out the year that I'd like to put out there for people to understand what we're trying to do. And I understand from the Attorney General's office that we can meet in a workshop setting as long as we're not discussing policy or taking any kind of action. Thank you. Okay, with that, turn it over to the Office of Commission Audit, Jack Cotter, for his comments.
Good morning, Commissioners. Good morning, Director. Government auditors who claim to adhere to federal auditing standards are required to be independent, ethical, and use professional judgment. In a past meeting, I discussed how OCA is required to be independent. I explained that OCA does not have a dog in the hunt with much of what we do, such as when reviewing vendors' compliance with requirements. So having addressed independence in that prior meeting, today we will discuss ethical principles. Ethical principles include the concept that auditing is essential to government accountability to the public. I have excellent news. This concept has been proactively reiterated to me by the current and past MDOT directors and prior commissioners. I kind of got to laugh, but from time to time there are folks out there who express thoughts to the contrary. Truly, some folks express puzzlement as to what value auditors bring to the mix. I don't take offense by that. So there needs to be an ethical tone at the top in audit organizations. That tone at the top starts with me. And what I attempt to convey to my staff is that I expect them to be customer service oriented, with the director as the proxy for the governor and taxpayers, who are the ultimate customers. I note to OCA that the commissioners are our superiors, our bosses. And as the director is our primary customer, it follows in almost all instances that MDOT employees are also our customers, until it appears that the employees are not in alignment with the director's guidance, processes, or other requirements. So in the rare occasions when staff diverge from the director's requirements, the staff might not deem OCA to be customer-oriented. We perform our work in accordance with ethical principles as a matter of personal and organizational responsibility. Ethical principles apply, A, in preserving our auditor independence, B, in taking only work that we are competent to perform, C, in performing high-quality work, and D, in following applicable standards, which our peer reviews reflect success. We maintain our integrity and objectivity when we perform our work and make decisions that are consistent with the broader interest of those who rely on our work, including the public. So speaking of the principles, those principles that guide our work are public interest, integrity, objectivity, using government information appropriately, and professional behavior. And I'll break each one of those down a little bit. So starting with the public interest. I think that every government employee in the room intends to serve the public interest. However, it's common that individuals vary in their definition of public interest. OCA uses the reasonable person approach based on our knowledge and experience. We almost always converse among ourselves as we develop our conclusions on public interest, among ourselves as auditors. However, it is likely that something that we think is not in the public interest might actually be in the public interest if we had the knowledge and experience of the person who disagrees with us, the engineer types at MDOT. This can make for interesting and collaborative discussions. So dealing with integrity, we perform our work with an attitude that is objective, fact-based, and nonpartisan and non-ideological. Our communications are expected to be honest, candid, and constructive, sometimes blunt. Regarding objectivity, it is our basis for credibility. It means that we must be independent in mind and appearance, maintain an attitude of impartiality, have intellectual honesty, and be free from conflicts of interest. We must also continuously assess our relationship with MDOT and other stakeholders in the context of our responsibility to the public. Independence and objectivity are very closely related and impact each other. Regarding government information, resources, and positions, they're supposed to be used for official purposes, not for personal gain or contrary to law or detrimental to legitimate interests of the audited entity or OCA. This all includes the handling of sensitive and classified information and resources. The public's right to the transparency of government information has to be balanced with the proper use of that information. And the last item is professional behavior. The high expectations for auditors include 1, compliance with all relevant legal, regulatory, and professional obligations, and 2, avoiding any conduct that could bring discredit to the auditor's work. Auditors are to put forth an honest effort in performing their duties in accordance with relevant technical and professional standards. So thank you for your time today, and I'll take any questions if there are any.
Thank you, Jack. Are there questions from commissioners of our Office of Commission Audit? I'd just say that in my 10-plus years on the commission and in various non-transportation-related roles I've had throughout my professional life, auditors have been extremely important. I don't know how in these last 10 years with a packet like we get, with the detail that we get as commissioners, that we could really do our job without the good work of Jack's office. Auditors in my history have done a really good job of helping every organization I've been involved with to be better, to avoid situations that could be considered, off center in some way. And so I'm a big believer in audit functions. I'm like anybody else. Sometimes you can want to pull your hair out. But you know what? Most of the time they're right. Or there's an area where we can work through things to make sure that everybody's on the same page. So, Jack, I appreciate you and your staff and as chair, as what you do day in and day out. It's very, very helpful and important.
Thank you for the kind words.
Okay. We'll go on into the oversight and information reports, the quarterly bid letting summary. Patrick? You're behind. Okay. We're not going to set up like this in the future, folks. We're going to have the podium kind of off to the side because I don't know if I like these guys behind me. It makes me a little nervous.
I don't necessarily like talking to your back either, but
it's my best side.
So, good morning, commissioners. In your packet this month, or this quarter, you have 3 documents. The first document is titled Quarterly Bid Letting Summary for the first quarter, which comprises October, November, and December of 2023. And in the first quarter, we let 159 projects. The second document, Bid Letting Trends for that same quarter, includes bid letting trends for the bid letting process, which includes the number of projects let, the number of single bidders, and the number of all bids rejected. And the third document is a summary of the first quarter's procurement card activity, including the number of transactions and the amount of payments on the P cards for the department. and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
I have a couple of questions, but I'll defer to my fellow commissioners first. Anybody have any particular questions? Okay, just for information purposes, Patrick, just so I understand, so there's a fairly large project on page 13 of 48. It's project number 44.
Okay.
Could you just help us understand, and maybe you've explained this in the past, I just don't remember, the concrete alternate approach? I wonder what that means for somebody that doesn't understand. I can't build a birdhouse, much less a highway. So can you help me understand the concrete alternative and what that's all about?
Would you mind if I deferred to some of these engineering experts that are in the room?
Oh, no problem.
Thank you.
Way to pass the buck, Patrick.
Absolutely.
There's someone on staff that could kind of explain that?
How about I ask Dee Parker, Director for the Bureau of Development? It's alternate pavement bid. It's a general question, I think, about alternate pavement bids.
Yeah, it's not so much the individual project, although it's a $63 million project, but it's the employment of concrete alternative with a 5-year material and workmanship warranty. I mean, the only concrete alternate I know is asphalt, but I need to understand that better.
Yes, as we go through it and we do our life cycle cost analysis, and when it's within 10% of asphalt or concrete, we do APB, which is alternate pavement bidding, which basically a contractor can either bid the project as concrete project or as a asphalt project.
Oh, okay.
So that's essentially, in a nutshell, what it is. So those two options are there. Our plans are set up accordingly as far as from a design standpoint, typical standpoint, showing both, and again, is based on a normal process from a letting standpoint, but that's generally the gist of it.
Okay, so it's choice between the two. I thought there was some new fiberglass road or something that I wasn't aware of. So, okay, I understand that. While you're up there, though, why don't we look at another big project, was $124 million, a trunk line project, and this one maybe makes a little more sense to my question. It allows the option for an alternate roadway base material, and there's like 4 different alternates. Help me understand that as to, we get comments or concerns expressed by the public about how we build the roads, and I know we do a lot of material analysis and all that kind of thing, but help me understand how there can be like 4 different alternate ways to approach the roadway base material.
That one I may have to.
69, it's
Page 21 of 48.
That one, Mr. Chairman, we may have to get back with you on. I have to understand the background of that specific project, to be honest with you.
okay. I didn't mean to blindside you in the middle of a meeting.
Oh,
but,
you're not. You're not.
I thought maybe it was obvious to you guys. It wasn't obvious to me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, if you could just get back to us, that'd be great.
Okay. All right.
While I got you, one more.
Yeah, sure, no problem.
That's what you get for having me as chairman. You get trouble here. Just help me understand on page 20, it's a project I don't think matters. I was just the on-the-job training voluntary incentive program. I don't know that I've run across that in the past. Maybe I have in our meetings, but what is that OJT VIP project?
I'm going to have to defer to some others. I know a little bit about it, Mr. Chairman, but not in great detail about the OJT program as far as the pilot. So we may have to get back with you, unless the director.
Jason, is that anything you can speak to?
That'd be great. Okay, we can wait for that. Yeah. Okay, thank you. Commissioner Schultz?
I just had a question about, I know some of these are just light maintenance projects and not, they're not reconstruction projects. But what opportunities, I know there's the relationship with MDOT staff with locals. How are those opportunities, even with a resurfacing, for example, for a road diet? If you have a 4-lane and you could do a road diet just because you're already paying for the restriping. How are those evaluated or those opportunities realized when you're doing these projects?
Yes, as we go through with projects in the different communities, MDOT, our local offices, our transportation service centers, we typically generally outreach to all of our local townships, local cities, and basically have that discussion. As we're coming through the project, are there some things that we need to look at, in regards to that local community as far as some of their needs? And we also have a process. You mentioned road diet. We also have a process that we kind of go through where we vet it within our department as far as those road diets. Again, we look at whether or not, from an EDT standpoint, whether or not it's viable or not. And I know recently we've ran across a couple of them where we've kind of supported definitely within the department. I think more so in the Southwest region area as relates to, for example, road diets. But generally, our local transportation service centers, they'll have outreach efforts prior to starting the design of the project with that local community, getting their input, their thoughts and views and things that we need to look out for, or if not, things that they want us to try to incorporate within our project. And road diets, as your example, is definitely one that we definitely do as far as one of our initiatives with the locals.
Is there a policy or practice that guides at what point the local agencies get engaged, like the local communities get engaged in that process? I mean, is it 30% design? Is it, is there like a trigger that just by practice that's normal?
Actually, it's very early on, probably even earlier than 30%, because as we design our projects, we don't want to go too far,
right.
And then we have to do a 90-degree turn as far as from a design standpoint. For example, your road diet piece, again, that's where we also have resolutions from the townships as far as councils for our support, for example, of road diets as well, before we move forward with that road diet plan as well. And so typically, like I said, our local offices, I was a former TSC manager and designer out in the TSCs, and we would generally, again, approach all of our local agencies and just kind of get that feedback. For example, I know Jonesville is one that we just supported just recently, probably a couple of weeks ago, whereas they're looking at doing a road diet as well within the village of Jonesville. And again, there are support for that, again, from council, again, a resolution, as well as public meetings are also had as well for folks to come in and provide their input on those projects as well. For example, as a road diet as well.
If I might add just
Yes.
a little bit, and Dee did a great job explaining it, but I think that's the beauty of our 5-year transportation program, is that we're looking 5 years out as a program, but even before that, we have a fairly robust scoping process before projects even get into the 5-year program. A big part of that scoping is going out and making sure that we're assessing the needs of the community so that we can help align that with the work that we're doing. And honestly, we're talking about is 5 years enough right now, and looking at maybe even a longer horizon. If you look at the opportunity curve for us to be able to take input and have it actually affected on the project, you need that input early. By the time we get to the 5-year program, the budgets are set, the schedules are somewhat set. We really need to make sure that we're getting the right input at the right time so that we have the ability to be able to react and change as necessary.
I appreciate that, because it is, by the time your program is 3 years and you're building it, and so the local jurisdictions, it takes them a while to figure out what's going on, and then they don't know exactly what to ask for, even if they want improvements, and then having them, if they're going to do a local share, for them to be able to pull together the local share while you are trying to do your design, that is, it seems like it should be a long period of time as 5 years, but it really isn't.
Right, and we really want to focus on a dig once mentality. So when we go into a community, if they're looking at sanitary sewer or water distribution or whatever, let's make sure that we're kind of pulling the projects together and helping leverage resources and leveraging funding, quite honestly, to be able to deliver a holistic project. Because to the average citizen, they probably couldn't care less if it's an MDOT roadway or a city sewer. They want to see one project and not have us work in silos.
Okay. Patrick, anything else from your perspective? Or Patrick already stepped down?
No, sir, thank you. I'm all set.
Okay, thank you very much. Dee, while you're up there?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I bring everyone's attention to the quarterly bid justification summary for the first quarter, fiscal year 2024. Again, it's October through December. Starting at page 63, depending on where you're at, but page 63 through 152 kind of demonstrates our program. Page 64 highlights, again, the jobs that were let, as well as the injuries estimate versus the extra low bid amount, October through December of 2023. If you notice there, in October, our percent under was 6.8%. We were slightly over, just a tad bit, at 6.53% for November. And in December, we were under 0.03%. Again, where December injuries estimates was 169, and the overall low bids were 169 pretty much as well in regards to that. Page 70 to 71 kind of highlights some other information there as far as our guess as far as why some of the frequency is factors as far as from a justification standpoint, why a lot of our jobs may be over. So that's there for you as well. 70 and page 70 and 71 highlights that. And then also, if you go to 74 to page 74 to page 82, kind of shows a spreadsheet of all of our justifications, and of course, page 83 through 153 highlights the justification memos for our department. Are there any questions you may have that you may have regards to the quarterly bid justification summary, pages 63 through page 152?
Are there questions on the part of the commissioners? Surprise, surprise, I don't have any questions on that part, Dee. Okay, let's go right into real estate services section.
Yes, real estate service section, page 153, highlights MDOT's real estate service section areas as far as disposal of real property interests. So those are the properties I have listed there for you, as you see. More importantly, if you notice the one column there, purchaser relationship to state of Michigan or department employee, they're all none. So there are no relationship with any of the parcels that we exchange with or that we sold to individuals where a state employee or a department employee was involved or related to those individuals.
Indeed, these were all conducted at fair market value, correct?
Correct. I believe this is for your information.
Okay, are there any questions about the real estate transactions? Okay, thank you very much, Dee. Jason, the final construction contracts and then all the other things that we wanted answers to earlier.
Absolutely. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'm going to go through our Exhibit B summary, and then I'll get to those other items. So for MDOT projects in October, November, and December that were finalized, 57 of those projects totaling approximately $127 million were finalized. 3 projects were more than 10% over their original contract amount, and 29 projects came in under original contract amount. The final monthly costs are a little more exciting than usual. They were minus 4.4, 4.6 positive, and minus 3.46% under or over their original contract value. The fiscal year so far, so that means from October is averaging 0.38 over the original contract amount, and those were MDOT projects. For local agency projects of the same period, 83 projects totaling approximately 103 million were finalized. 8 projects were more than 10% over their original contract amount, and 49 projects came in under their original contract value. There are 4 MDOT projects and 7 local agency projects presented in Exhibit B, and I can try to entertain any specific questions on those projects if there are any.
Any questions? Okay.
All right, just to provide, and these are fantastic topics for that workshop that was mentioned, where we can get into detail, because I could probably talk to you for about 20 days on these topics. I just love the construction aspect. We have an Office of Business Development that will do a lot better justice than I will on the OJT, but to frame that, we have an OJT, an on-the-job training program, and we have contractors enrolled in that program, and it is to solicit disadvantaged individuals in apprenticeships and training programs. So contractors will enroll in that, and they'll have a set amount of staff that are in an OJT position. If they go above and beyond their commitment level and have additional people, they can get bid credits for additional positions of $50,000 per person, up to a total of $500,000 in total value that would be counted as a negative in their bids for projects. So it's definitely an incentive. That's what you'll be seeing in there in the language. It's an incentive program to have more apprenticeships, more trainees, and you know, grow the industry, et cetera, and they will get monetary credits on their bids for that. Now, if they're not in the system, there are still other ways to apply and get OJT credit, if I'm not mistaken, but I'd want to look into that further. So it is a bid incentive, a process that you're seeing noted in the packet.
Yeah. Terrific. Thank you.
I looked up as quickly as I could back there. One of the projects I did note, it's our alternate pavement bid, and like Mr. Parker said, we have a few of those throughout the year where the life cycle cost analysis, which is a law we have to follow, we go through, and the alternatives between HMA and concrete are within 10%. So with that being relatively competitive, we put that out, and like Mr. Parker said, the contractor can select the pavement. Well, as part of that, of late, we have added in an option in one of those projects. I know it has 5 different alternatives where they can do an alternative pavement base as well, and that could be cement treated base or using open graded drainage course with crushed concrete from the job. There are different options in there, and we're competitively putting that out to see what is the best economically for us. All of those sections will have been engineered to provide the appropriate support, but our target is to get the most competitive product that we can, and so those are options that they can pick, and that'll determine the low bidder with which alternative they use on the projects. It's typically only been the pavement, and everything below it has been relatively the same, but now there's a few projects I think we're entertaining pavement bases, because in certain areas of the state, metro, we have a different base design than we might have in other areas due to traffic loading, commercial traffic, et cetera.
The part in there that makes me feel good about it is you said that no matter what the material is, it's measured for load bearing, so that whether it's engineered soil, quote, sand, or aggregate or whatever, that it has to meet the same load bearing requirements no matter what.
Yes, sir. I should have probably used the word equivalent. That's what we typically use. It's equivalent pavement sections. There'll be equivalent bases. We just want to know which one has the optimal economics for the taxpayer. So, and I am abbreviating a lot, sir.
Yeah.
So a few more comments maybe in a workshop might help educate further.
Any other questions of Jason? Okay, thank you very much, Jason.
Thank you.
Have I missed anything? Okay, we've concluded our commission business and oversight responsibilities. I would open the floor up for public comment, reminding those who wish to make comments that we do limit those comments to 3 minutes. Yes. It's a different meeting, so go right ahead. You get another 3 minutes. Our lucky day.
I just wanted to, I did think I saw that in the agenda you might propose some sort of policy review, and I just want to emphasize it's not only reviewing old policies, but there's a crisis here, and I'm trying to urge the Commission that it has to develop a user fee policy. And I do have strong feelings on what that should be, but the very first thing is the Commission needs to decide what its user fee policy is. But here's some quotes I jotted down. This is Growing Michigan Together Council, Infrastructure and Places Work Group Policy Recommendations, December 1, 2023. The state and local governments need to raise additional funding to maintain our current road system. To meet this need, the state should implement a phased approach that broadens funding sources for transportation, transitions Michigan from a reliance on the motor fuel tax, and raises additional revenue to fill the gap. This is from the Growing Michigan Together final report, December 14, 2023. The state's roadways have become a focal point for scrutiny. Instead of being an asset to Michigan residents, visitors, and businesses, the current inadequate maintenance and funding of our roads and highways and bridges is a liability to drivers, the state budget, and the economy. The state needs to examine alternative dedicated funding sources to maintain Michigan's road infrastructure, including vehicle miles traveled fees. Now, on the issue, is a user fee a tax or not? This is Westlake Transportation versus Public Service Commission, 255 Mishap 589. The trucking company said a user fee imposed by the Public Service Commission was a forbidden tax. The court ruled, in exchange for the fees, a motor carrier receives the right to operate its trucks in Michigan, and the fees are used to carry out the purposes of the act. Thus, there is a direct benefit to the one who pays the fees. It's not a tax. Here's Michigan Attorney General Opinion 1979, Opinion 5547. The Commission is mandated by the Constitution and the Legislative Enabling Act to establish the transportation program objectives to be pursued by the Director of the Department of State Transportation with respect to all modes of transportation. 2 more points. On December 31, 2020, this Commission, on its own authority, without any additional legislative authorization, approved a $3.5 billion bond issue. The security for that bond issue is motor fuel taxes and registration tax proceeds. If this Commission, on its own authority, can do something the legislature can't even do, like pledge motor fuel taxes and registration taxes for bonds, this Commission can implement a user fee to meet this crisis. And I heard the director, I saw the speech last night, I know what the director's talking about, going to the well again, gonna borrow another $700 million. Simple economics tells us this is not a solution. And I'm quoting Governor Whitmer. This is final. This is my end. Governor Whitmer said on November 21, 2022, we are undergoing a historic transformation from internal combustion engines to electric vehicles. And being able to build out and maintain infrastructure that can support this technology is something that every state in the country is going to grapple with. I think Michigan could show the world what a real solution looks like. And so that's, you've heard my pitch before. God bless you on your policy discussions. Thank you.
and God bless you. Thank you very much. Appreciate your input. I would only on a side note urge you to make sure you share your thoughts with the state legislature. Are there any other public comments? Okay, seeing none, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. And support? Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. We stand adjourned.